Continuing our study in the book of Proverbs using the books. I don't know if we have any more books if anybody needs one or not. There may be a few, but I don't see any. Does anybody need a book? We're talking about the use of the tongue this morning. We could probably spend a whole quarter talking on the use of the tongue, on each one of these sins and ways to use it for the positive. You could spend a lot of time on this. We're going to try to do a brief overview of this topic from the book of Proverbs this morning. Before we get started, let's start with a word of prayer. Would you bow with me? First off, the little introduction, we're going to go through some common sins of the tongue, and then we'll touch on some positive things you can use your tongue for. And then if we get to it, well, there's a few questions at the end. So we're not going to deviate too much from what the book has, but there will be a few places. The first common sin of the tongue that we're going to talk about this morning is talking too much. Talking too much. That may not be something that I have been tasked with, talking too much. That's not me. But there are some people will talk too much. Let's read what the Bible says on this. Let's start in the middle and go down this way and read some of these scriptures. Todd, can you start with Proverbs 15:2 and 28, and then Bonnie, can you get 29:11, please?
Okay. Proverbs 15:2, the tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable, but the mouth of fools spouts folly. And verse 28, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things.
A fool always loses his temper, but a wise man holds it back.
What is the scriptures here telling us about talking too much?
It's not a very wise thing.
Ken? There's an old saying that if you give a man enough rope, he'll hang himself. By talking too much, you a lot of times get yourself in trouble. You end up saying things you shouldn't have said.
You provide information that you maybe weren't supposed to, or you just start conveying too many feelings that you shouldn't have said. Bite your tongue. That's another thing you might hear have said in the past. Just don't talk. Bite your tongue. How is this a sin? Where do we see it says talking too much is a sin? Or is this just kind of a variation of something else that's a sin? Norm?
We are accountable for every single word we use. Good or bad, we are accountable for every single one. The more you spread out there without thought, there are plenty of words we can use that God frowns upon. Coarse words, foul words. There's all kinds of trouble we get into with the tongue. And anything that's deals with any type of falsehood. The more we use it, the more likely we are to start using those things that God has told us don't.
When we're talking, we tend to focus on ourselves, which is kind of why we can get into the bad habit of interrupting somebody else, because it's like, oh, I can't wait to see how smart I am or whatever. I mean, it gets into that. It's a focus on self as opposed to total focus on the other person. When the other person's talking and you're silent, they have the highlight there.
Could be more of an attitude thing.
What's the scripture where it says you will give account for every idle word? Is what Jesus says in the...
Yeah, it's Matthew 12:36.
Yeah, Matthew 12:36. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I've always remembered it as every idle word. The New American Standard says every careless word, or in the margin, every useless word. They'll give accounting for it on the day of judgment, for by your words you'll be justified, and by your words you'll be condemned.
Sure, you know what we're saying, and don't say something unless you need to. It's going to be beneficial, and we can talk about that more at the end. beneficial words. All right, let's move on to the second common sin. Whispering and tale-bearing. Ken, can you read?
16:27.
Yes. And then
Says, an ungodly man digs up evil, and it is on his lips like a burning fire.
on his lips like a burning fire. Saying things he shouldn't. Sue, can you get 11:13?
The talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is of a faithful spirit conceals a matter.
What is a talebearer? Does this define it? Reveals secrets? How would you define a talebearer?
Says, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets.
Slander. That's another way to say
Say it. You're talking about someone behind their back. You're telling a tale. All right. 18:8. Jesse, can you get that one?
The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly.
In 16:28.
A froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separates chief friends.
So this
Talk a little bit different about whisperer. How would you define a whisperer? Not just somebody that whispers, but what is it saying here?
Secret things that you shouldn't be.
yeah,
You're gossiping more. Was this what the picture shows in this one? You're telling secrets or gossiping, slandering, other ways to say it? Yes.
In my Bible, it says the perverse man. And so you have that idea of, it's not that you're accidentally saying something you shouldn't have. This is done on purpose. There's the motive behind it to cause strife.
you get a thrill out of it.
Or something. Yeah. Let's continue these. 17:9. Who else wants to read in the middle here? Brad?
One who conceals an offense seeks love, but one who repeats a matter separates close friends.
Yeah,
This
this
goes back to telling secrets. You repeats a matter that you shouldn't be talking about. 10:8. Let's move over here. Tim, you want to read? 10:8 and then 25:23. Whoever's next. Francis.
The wise in heart will receive commands, but a prating fool will follow.
okay.
Proverbs 25.
25:23.
The north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue, and angry countenance.
Yeah,
These all talk about the tongue, saying something you shouldn't. Backbiting tongue. What is a backbiting tongue? What do you think that means? It's talking about someone? That's right. I would say that's in whispering and tale-bearing. You're not doing something you're supposed to with your mouth. Let's move on to lying. We could spend a long time on this one. Sorry, I'm bad with names. Jeff, sorry.
Verse 6:17. I'm going to read verse 16 as well because it.
yes, read 16 through 19, please, on that.
Oh, 16 through 19.
Yes.
These 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A proud man, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift and running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren.
How many sins of the tongue are mentioned in these verses? These 4 verses.
Yeah, there's
3.
Pretty important. And 2 of them are the same, or I would say they're the same. Lying. It talks about lying there. a lying tongue, and then a false witness who speaks lies. That's lying, maybe a subset of lying. It's very important. God hates liars. I think that's a quote. Could be sorry. Who had their hand up? Or Norm?
That's the description given to the devil, the father of all liars. So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. You tell the truth.
12:22, Bill.
Lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal truthfully are his delight.
Can you do 19 as well? 12:19.
The truthful lips shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment.
Yes, more scriptures just reinforce God hates lying. It's an abomination. I haven't looked up or did a search for how many times it's mentioned, if lying is mentioned so many times. It seems like it's mentioned a lot. Norm?
If you had to give an opposite to lying, it would be the truth. And so the difference between truth and lying, when you compare it to God and the devil, I mean, truth is the top of the right way to go, lying is the bottom of the wrong way to go. And it's as far as you can get from God.
It's very true. You just showed the polar opposites there. That's a good analogy. Let's move on to flattery. Proverbs 10:18.
Read, please.
Hatred has lying lips, and whoever utters slander is a fool.
Okay.
27:6. Bob, can you get that one?
Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful.
And 12:19 next. Brandon, I guess.
28:23?
Sorry, I said it wrong. 28:23, yes.
Whoever rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than he who flatters with his tongue.
So define flattery, and how is this different than just giving a compliment? Is it the motive? Is it the motive behind it? Intent? You're trying to build them up so that you can get something? Flatter them? Sam?
It seems that there's deception that's involved here. It's not just encouragement, like what we see found later.
Yeah, it's a hard problem.
It's not just saying something nice to someone, but it goes to your core. Norm?
Word camouflage. It's you have the intent of doing harm, and you're putting up something in front so that you can deceitfully be able to accomplish the task. So it's this word camoufage. That's how
It's definitely a deception. God knows our hearts, and then condemn, flattery. Any more comments on that before we move on? There's a few more
common sins of the tongue that we'll talk about this morning. Angry words. Let's see, where are we at? Eric, would you like to read 15:1?
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Okay.
Jesse can get 12:16, and then April 15:18.
Fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers shame.
A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but the slow to anger calms the dispute.
So, how is being angry in itself the sin, or is it what we say, something we do when we're angry? Which is the sin here?
How do you act?
Anger itself is not a sin, because we see that Jesus was angry. Be angry and do not sin.
God asked Jonah twice, I believe there in Jonah 4, is it right for you to be angry? And of course his response was, yes, it's right for me to be angry even to death. He felt justified by it. So I think that indicates sometimes we're angry at things we ought not to be angry about. And then, yes, the scriptures reveal things that obviously we should be upset or angered by. But obviously when our emotions are aroused that much, that intensely, it can open the door. And that's what Paul says in Ephesians 4:26-27. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your wrath, nor give opportunity to the devil. Because lots of times we're opening the door, easy target to the devil when we're angry.
If our fuses are shorter when we're angry, then it's easier to jump across that line where we're sinning. Norm?
Anger has a focus, and it's normally something that sets you to anger. There's a focus involved with that. And so what we're focused on that makes us angry tells a lot about who we are.
And the angry words.
These are not just profanity, cuss words we might see in a minute. These are just words that may be putting somebody down, hurtful, yeah. Something you shouldn't say. Sorry?
Weapons.
Weapons, yeah. Words can hurt. What was the saying as a kid? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can't hurt me. That's not really true. Words can hurt. I think more people are coming around to that these days because there's so much bullying and just words, angry words. It's definitely not right. All right, let's move on to biting, sarcastic speech. Yes, 12:18, please.
There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing.
What is this condemning here? Biting, sarcastic speech. Maybe we talked about it a little bit, backbiting, or just, I mean, maybe these are all considered angry words. You could say that's angry words. Biting, but sarcastic speech is a little different. How would you describe it? Yeah, go ahead.
Some people want to hide behind this like, I don't mean it, but it's kind of a way of them speaking the truth of maybe how they actually feel. So they may say something that would hurt, but they're like, use it in a sarcastic way, like, oh, and then I'm just kidding, you know, kind of thing. But those words still count. And also just being sarcastic can also just be irreverent, or you're not showing respect.
Is sarcasm in itself a sin? Not always in my mind. Norm?
It's saying something at the expense of somebody else. You're raising yourself up when you sarcastically, speak about somebody else. So it's, I want to get somebody to laugh at you, and then I look better. It's just this whole out of whack focus on the wrong thing.
It's focusing on someone else, or looking at yourself, building yourself up and tearing somebody else down. Todd?
Yeah, there's an interesting proverb over in chapter 26:18. 2 verses there. It says, like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death, so is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, was I not joking? And so it's like you use this excuse that it was just a joke when you realize it. I mean, you're only going to have to respond after the person calls you out, right? And then you say, oh, it was just a joke. Well, no, they recognized it for what it was, and now you need to be humble and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, kind of trying to justify yourself, and probably should have said it. All right, any more thoughts on that? Sarcastic, Bill?
I think we've always, all of us have known somebody that's just verbally shredded their friends and justified it, well, they're my friends, I can talk about them like this. And you never know what place the person's going to be on that day when you're spouting all these things off. And it's not justified to do that and say it's because it's my friend, I can talk to them like that. It's just not right.
You should build them up, not tear them down. I forget which one it is. One talks about not criticizing your friends, but it's better from your friends than from an enemy. Or I forget. Yeah, I think that's the one I'm thinking of. I think we read it already. But I think that could apply here in this case. All right, let's move on to profanity and filthy stories. Let's start over here. Jeb, would you like to read Exodus 20 verse 7, James 3 verse 10?
Exodus 20 verse 7. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain.
James 3:10.
From the mouth came both blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not be this way.
Can you read Ephesians
5 verses 3 and 4?
But do not let immorality or any impurity or greed even be named among you, as is proper among saints. And there must be no filthiness and silly talk or coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks.
I think we all know what these verses are condemning. These are not from Proverbs, but it could apply to almost any of these where it talks angry words, filthy words. I think we all know what this is talking about. Swear words, profanity. But even just something that's crude, or a story you're making an expense at someone else. In the book here on page 31, in the black box in the middle, jokes that are vulgar and filthy reflect a mind that is in the gutter and drags others down to the same level. I think that's what this is talking about. Todd?
One verse you could add to that, just a little higher on the page in Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 29. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. The margin in the New American Standard, instead of unwholesome word, it says rotten word. That's interesting to me because I've had the argument or just discussion with the kids or whoever about how do these words become bad words? They just have this original meaning. Why is that such a bad thing? Well, they're called rotten words. They've moved from their original meaning to something that is disgusting. And we don't say
a different connotation
nowadays. So yeah, just using it in a different definition. Yes.
The hard part about this particular section is that it builds on itself once you start down that path. And I think the worst part is that oftentimes we will be surrounded by this because the world is engulfed in it. And it's not enough to be quiet about it, to not use it ourselves. We actually have to expose these things and try to fight against it. Because if you're quiet when all the filthy stories are going around, if you're not speaking up about it, you're participating. Because if somebody doesn't stop them, they will continue and continue and continue without end, and it'll get worse and worse and worse as time goes by because they feel like they have an audience. They can get more crude. They can become more crass with their language. And the hard part is actually not laughing, yeah, all right, yeah, but actually saying, no, stop, that's disgusting. And as a Christian, that's kind of where our challenge lies. We need to be the bulwark that says, hey, no, that's enough. Yeah, you're free to say that, but I'd rather you not. And if you're going to continue, I'm out. And be verbalizing that. To let them know, hey, there's a stop to that right here. And it's with me and my faith. And it's a long time. That's the part I'm struggling with right now. Because I was steeped in using it. And then it's got to the point where, okay, I don't use it anymore, but I let others use it freely. And the Bible says that's not enough. We need to put the stop to it, to be the ones that say, hey, no further. And 'cause I've been the one that's quiet, and the stories get worse. They don't ever get better. Something has to stop it.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Norm, maybe something we don't normally think about, not just not doing it ourselves, but put a stop to it. Put it out there that this is not going to be tolerated with me, so please stop doing that. Any other comments on profanity? And then we can move on to some proper uses of the tongue here. To calm anger is the first one mentioned here in the text. Where did we get to? Who else would like to read?
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Calm anger. Be soft. Don't be loud when you talk. If someone is yelling, talk softly. That's one thing we can do. Norm?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Whoever it is not speaking.
I was going to say that works. For those of you that are younger, that works. So just take it from folks that have been around a little longer. A soft approach or a soft response immediately diffuses a situation, and just try it the next time is what I would encourage. The next time because you tend to bounce off the loudness in trying to settle the situation, it just gets louder. So try that next time and practice it.
Yeah. Calm anger. All right. Speak softly. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
There's usually a lot of anger in sports, and when you train to be a referee, there's always a problem with either coaches or parents or fans coming at you and yelling at you that you did something wrong. And part of the training of becoming a referee is it teaches you how to talk to these people, and instead of coming at them, you stand back, you calm down, even, push your palms down, just kind of to calm yourself and to show to that person that is angry at you that you're calm and you're collected, and you talk softly to that person, you talk quietly to that person, and that helps to bring that anger down and helps to avoid the fight. Although you are the person that brings the law to the game, you can pull up the red card and say, hey, you're out of this game, you're out of this field, but you are trained to be calm and to stop the anger and to stop the fight.
It's definitely a learned trait to be calm in the face of anger. Yes, Erica.
This reminds me of in the Beatitudes, kind of like Lana was saying, like the referees are taught, to have this demeanor about them. Well, in the Beatitudes, Jesus says that this is the mark of a son of God. He said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they are called the sons of God. So if we're a child of God, we really need to work on this, and by showing other people that we are calm in hostile situations, you're actually, in a way, proclaiming that you're God's son, you're his child.
Good point. Be peacemakers. All right, let's move on before we get too far behind. To disperse knowledge, Proverbs 15:7.
The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools are not bright.
What kind of knowledge is it talking about here, dispersing knowledge? Or could it be talking about here?
Christ.
Teach someone how to be saved, yeah. That's what it says here.
Live better, to do a job easier, and many other useful purposes. That's a positive thing. That's not a negative thing, right? Helping someone by conveying knowledge. I don't think we want to spend too much on that one. Thirdly, to rebuke sin. Proverbs 27:6.
Faithful are the wings of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy.
28:23. Andy, can you get that one?
He who rebukes a man will find more favor afterward than he who flatters with the tongue.
So we are commanded to rebuke sin. Is there a right way and a wrong way to do that? I think there is. I think these give us some wisdom here about how we should do it. Calmly and lovingly, not meanly. We're not going to have time to read Matthew 3, but there's some other good information there too, I think. Unless I wrote it down wrong. Anyways, any other comments on rebuking sin? Sam?
E 2:21 says to do it with gentleness, correcting those who are in opposition. So, I think that just isn't the first two.
Right. For sure. All right. Let's see. Encourage others. Let's read some of these. John, would you read Proverbs 15:23? And
a man has joy by the answer of his mouth, and the word spoken in due season, how good it is.
And can you read 26 as well? Sorry.
26.
Yeah, 15:26.
The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination with the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant.
So it goes back to motive here. We're talking, what's your heart saying? What you're trying to encourage someone, or you're trying to bring someone down. Who else? Go ahead. 15:4, please.
Kind words are like a life-giving tree, but lying words will crush your spirit.
Okay. Brent, 10:11, please.
The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence.
All right. Let's just go back up to the. Somebody have a comment? Todd, we'll start back up here at the middle. Is it 16:24, please?
Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones.
25:11.
Like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word spoken in right circumstances.
I think we read that one in the past few weeks. It sounds, I know we did, but a lot of these can be applicable to several lessons. Ken, can you read Proverbs 10, verses 20 and 21?
The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for a lack of wisdom.
Okay. Let's see if that's what I was reading. Okay. I must have typed in my verse wrong. So how do these tell us we need to encourage others? And what does it gain us? What does it gain the person we're talking to? Sam?
Well, the goal is for everybody to go to heaven. Like that's the best case scenario. So, as a Christian with the right heart, you should be wanting to guide as many others and have others reciprocate that by guiding you in the right direction. And if one person stumbles, ideally everyone else will assist that individual in correcting himself or herself.
Yeah, that's the long-term
goal we all should have, is to get to heaven, and everyone else around us, as many as we can get there. That should be our goal. Todd?
Yeah, a lot of these verses talked about the tongue being able to heal, where we've seen so many others that it can tear down. And you have that power to heal somebody else, to soothe somebody else by recognizing that they need encouragement. And it's free. It doesn't cost you a dime. You can help that person, maybe more so than the doctor can or this medication can, just by looking for a way to encourage them.
This is a trait that is more natural to some than others, but it's definitely something we need to foster and work on. Who in the New Testament do we know as was known for this? Sue?
Barnabas was named, that wasn't his real name. He was given that name by the other disciples, and which means son of encouragement. And you know, he's the one that took John Mark on the second journey. And John, you know, even though Paul was upset with him, they later were friends. And I think possibly the reason was because Barnabas had taken him on his journey, and that was an encouragement to him. And later, you know, he wrote the book of Mark and was a faithful Christian.
Yeah, we don't know how much impact we're going to have on someone if we encourage them. They could be a strong worker for the Lord with just little additions of encouragement. Let's wrap up, and then we'll try to get to some questions before we run out of time. Some of the main takeaways today: we need to learn to control our tongue. Proverbs 16:23 says, "The heart of the wise teaches his mouth and adds learning to his lips." And James 3:8, "But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison." It's not tameable, but it is bridleable. Is that a word? Able to be bridled. How about that? So that's the negative, but positive. We can use our tongue for positive things. Speak truth, speak encouraging words, comfort those who are suffering, express your love, spread the gospel. That's a way to use our tongue. We didn't cover every possible sin that was from the tongue. I think blasphemy was one I thought of later that maybe wasn't on there, but it could be considered one of those other ones. But these are several of the main ones. So we have a few time left for questions. We'll try to go through some of these. What are some consequences in life from an uncontrolled tongue? Ken?
You can certainly lose friends that way.
Lose friends, yeah.
Yeah, people may quit telling you things because you can't keep their confidence.
Loose lips, sink ships.
Right.
Yeah, you could lose friends, jobs, relationships.
You can bring reproach on the church.
That'd be a big one. That's
Work or school.
We get examples out in the world so that people can see Christ in us. So if we're not controlling our tongue, that would be a big red flag. People would not want to be a part of the Lord's church.
Yes, Francis.
I have here in James 1:20, "For the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God." And I don't recall the gentleman that had our meeting, but that was his main focus, that if you cannot control that anger and everything, you're not showing God.
Very good point.
All right, what are some possible rewards in life from a controlled tongue? Go on the opposite side of what we just talked about.
Arguments, disputes, probably settle things much easier.
Is it a positive just to avoid all the things we said bad things that could happen to you if you don't control your tongue? You avoid all that?
That would be a positive. Norm?
Controlled tongue isn't just, it's not just not saying the bad thing. Controlled tongue actually says good things. And it's refraining refrain from saying the bad, but saying the good. That's what an actually controlled tongue is being able to, I'm not going to say the bad thing, I'm actually going to say the good thing. That's controlling, bridling what your inclination is. And everybody likes somebody who does that. There's not a person in here that doesn't like the person that says the kind and encouraging things. We all can think in our minds immediately of people that are that, and that should be who we are. Because everyone wants to be around those people. And that's who we should be, because people should want to be around us. And we should be that way because we are honoring our God. And we should have the opportunity then to tell them, this is why I'm like this. You can be like this too.
Yeah, you stand up.
Hopefully they would ask, why are you different? And you can tell them. Use that as an in. We talked a little bit about this already. Define whisperer and talebearers. We'll skip that one. What should be one's conduct when hearing someone gossip to you? We didn't really talk about that. What do you think?
Either don't listen or don't repeat it.
Okay. If somebody's telling you some gossip, would you say, stop doing that? I mean, don't tell me that. That's not right. Don't listen. I mean, I think that's a good start. What else?
I mean, Francis?
Well, I know in a certain circumstance I had, this lady was tending to talk about a mutual friend. And I said, no, we're not going there. Just leave it at that. And my famous comment was, if you can't say it with them in the room, you don't need to say it at all.
Right. Todd?
Just know that if they gossip to you, they will also gossip about you. So you don't really have, there's not really good trust there. But one thing you can say is, have you talked to that person about it? Just try to remind them of their Christian duty.
Erica?
In the scriptures that stood out to me going through the study, that in Proverbs 18, it says that when we speak bad, when we don't use our tongue in a wholesome way, we're actually creating a snare for our own soul. And I think we don't think, like when we're talking about gossiping or anything like that, you're not only hurting that other person, you're condemning yourself to hell by doing those things. And a lot of times people are not really giving thought to that when they are gossiping or talebearing or whispering or however they're using their tongue in a poor way.
There's definitely consequences for our words. We need to take that into account.
One last question, then we'll finish. What sins of the tongue are frequently committed when angry? Yes? Profanity, hateful words, angry words. We already talked about this. I mean, that's one of my favorite songs is Angry Words. Jesse?
I read a book once. I was trying to run it through my head, but I believe it was the His Needs, Her Needs book from a long time ago, and it was something talking about like everybody's got a little emotional penny bank, and you say a positive thing and it makes a little deposit. Somebody says a positive thing, makes a little deposit. If you say one negative thing, it can shatter the whole jar. A person can dismiss 2,000 positive things because of one underlying criticism or complaint or failure or something like that. So all the words are powerful, but it would seem like sometimes that the discouraging or negative word is much more harmful.
One quote is they
hurt a lot more and take up a lot more space in that virtual piggy bank of emotion. All right, any more comments? I think we're out of time. All right. I think mine says 9:46. Thanks, everyone.